Victor, so much is being speculated and said about Canelo's recent failed doping test. Can you just shed some light on that for me? Because I know you know exactly what's going on there. Just let the fans know, let us know exactly how you see things and what's possibly behind it. What's going on there?
Well, let me say, first of all, that clenbuterol is a very potent performance-enhancing substance that would help a boxer in training tremendously. So it's not something that, you know, I believe a lot of fighters do use clenbuterol. The issue is it's easy to get exposure through eating contaminated meat, and especially in Mexico. And there's been a long history with soccer players and other fighters, even a fighter that I worked with back in 2016, Francisco Vargas, was training here in the United States. He went to Mexico, ate some contaminated meat, came up positive, and they did the exact thing that they're attempting to do now with Canelo, which is make him bring his camp back to the United States and then accelerate the testing from now until the fight. However, I think that there's a responsibility that Canelo has. He needs to step up and provide some type of evidence of where are the receipts where he purchased this contaminated meat. Did he go to a restaurant? Did he buy? Does he have a chef that bought this meat? Let's go to that particular slaughterhouse where the meat came from. A study came out in 2016.
Well, how would he know if he's eating meat? He goes to a restaurant, he eats at home. It depends.
Well, let me explain. That's exactly how the soccer players got exonerated.
Yeah.
That exact procedure. So when you do an investigation, you go right to that restaurant. Where do you buy your meat? You go right to that slaughterhouse. They did a survey of 200 slaughterhouses in Mexico. 58 were selling meat that was contaminated and would cause a positive drug test. That's almost 30%. So that tells you 1 out of 3 hamburger stands that you walk up to in Mexico are going to give you a positive test.
Yeah.
So yes, clenbuterol almost has a built-in excuse that, well, hey, the dog ate my homework. I didn't know. I came home and you know. So I think he's got some explaining to do, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So yes, the reason these 5 soccer players were exonerated is because they conducted an investigation and there was evidence that was presented, and they went to the restaurant, they went to the slaughterhouse, they determined that contaminated meat was coming and they traced it back, and therefore when you go to these arbitration hearings, you present what they call exceptional circumstances. So if you unknowingly, unwittingly go into a restaurant and eat some meat, well, you can't just say that. If you say, well, I took a contaminated nutritional supplement, great, which one was it? What's the lot number? Can I go independently to a store and buy that lot number at a couple different stores where the seal is not broken and measure the capsules or tablets inside and determine that they are in fact contaminated? Instead, my understanding, like recently with the John Jones case, he showed up at this case in California with this Turinabol, and he said, well, I don't know how I got it. Now, let me tell you a lot of times what I know happens, okay? Most of the steroids that are circulated in the United States here, and even in Mexico, but in Mexico you can buy stuff in a pharmacy, so not as much, are made in underground. Yeah, you can walk up to any pharmacy and buy growth hormone, EPO, insulin, testosterone, clenbuterol, whatever you want to buy, it's available with no prescription.
That's scary.
But what I'm saying is, these guys will buy something that doesn't come from a pharmacy that's made in one of these underground clandestine labs, and they think they're injecting, microdosing and injecting testosterone, but because they're buying it from people that are making this in their kitchen or their basement, they don't clean their glassware thoroughly when they make a batch of this steroid and a batch of this steroid and a batch of this steroid, so you get what they call cross-contamination. So they say, well, I wasn't taking nandrolone. No, but you were using testosterone that was contaminated for nandrolone. So, in other words, you get exposed to something because you're doing something else that's bad. So there's no, Canelo deserves, every reasonable opportunity to come and present his side of the story, which means do an investigation and come up with some evidence that shows that you really did consume contaminated meat. Now, if he just says, well, I can't do that, or I don't know that, or here's my opinion about it. He's a multi-million-dollar athlete. They've known about contaminated meat in Mexico since at least 2011. So who are your advisors that are not telling you, don't consume this meat in Mexico because oftentimes it's going to be contaminated? They know. So who's the dummy in charge of letting him eat this meat? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
What's his name? Okay, let's talk to him.
A lot of people will lay blame on the team, being that Chepo Reynoso was butchered. He should know his way around meat. Would you lay blame on the team? Would you lay blame on?
I lay blame on everybody. Anybody connected with him that had any part in the decision to eat, if he did eat contaminated meat, and it's not intentional. And that's what you don't know. Here's where the real focus needs to be, and how boxing can learn a valuable lesson from this contaminated meat issue, or the intent to cheat. We don't know yet regarding Canelo. Is from the last fight they had in September, they're just now 4 months later going into a testing pool for 8 weeks before this next fight. What have they been doing for the last 4 months? Zero testing is what they've been doing. So when you give a fighter the ability, as the A side, to turn the testing spigot on and off, and you know exactly when the testing is going to begin out from a fight, that gives you a window so big that you can drive a Mack truck through it. You can do all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So is it possible that he was doing cycles of clenbuterol and he just didn't taper? He got greedy and he just didn't taper quite soon enough, and he had trace amounts of clenbuterol in his urine sample, 2 of them. And I know they were supposed to be 3 apart.
If he did or did.
Well, we don't know. That's what I'm saying. It could be from contaminated meat. It could be, but it also could be from intentionally using clenbuterol to gain a competitive edge. So I don't know which way this goes. It could be contaminated meat because of him being in Mexico, but at the same time, that's like a mother or whoever his managers are allowing a young kid to go out and play in the street and he gets run over by a car. What kind of mother does that?
Yeah.
So who are these trainers of Canelo? Hey, wake up, okay? You put your boy at risk, and now you got the whole world of boxing wondering, is your boy intentionally cheating, or did he really eat contaminated meat?
Victor, just when we thought we will pass that phase in boxing, it comes back. How does this affect boxing now? Does this tarnish Canelo's legacy? Do you think? Can you really explain this, and then people will be like, okay, we're good.
Once again, I'm going to take the high road here. It's an opportunity for boxing to learn that people at the very top of the sport, making the majority of the money, the Canelos, the Triple Gs, the Joshuas, these others that are making this massive money, they're manipulating, they're duping the boxing public into thinking, hey, there's testing, so these guys must be clean. No, there's a very short window of testing before fights, and in between, these guys can do whatever they want. So I would like to see one of these guys, Canelo, here's your opportunity. Step up and say, I'm going to be the leader of boxing. I'm going to enroll in 24/7, 365 testing, and I invite all others that have the financial means to join me. It's approximately $20,000 a year, but when you're making tens of millions, I don't think that's a lot to ask.
Yeah. So how do you expect the final outcome to be? If you can just predict off the top of your head, how do you expect this to come out to be, and is it going to affect the fight at all?
My opinion?
Yeah.
The fight will take place.
Yeah.
They'll do just exactly what they did with Francisco Vargas. They'll accelerate the testing. He'll move his camp here. He won't test positive again, and they'll have the fight. There's too much money at stake.
That's that.
I don't predict they're going to cancel the fight. Now, I tell you who has an opportunity to step up and force Canelo to present some evidence to support this contaminated meat theory that he has, and that's Golovkin. So he needs to say, listen, I want some answers. I want to tell the Nevada Commission that as well. Tell Bob Bennett, do an investigation. I'm waiting to hear what you find out. Can you show me traceability to a slaughterhouse that's producing meat that's contaminated that ended up on Canelo's plate? So somebody needs to take some risk. Whether they will or whether they won't, I don't know. But I'm glad that the world of boxing is talking about this, because VADA started back in 2010, 2011 was when the idea was born, and the first tests were done at the beginning of 2012. So we've had 6 years now of testing, and initially it was really hard to get this movement going. Now there's a big wave that's crashing on the shores everywhere, and people realize how widespread that EDs in boxing really is.
Well, Victor, it's an honor and a pleasure talking to you. I know you're a busy man. You got to get going, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.